Hi everybody, welcome back to the lovely North Grove. I'm Sonia. I'm a program facilitator here at the North Grove. And today we're going to be doing creamy tomato soup and baked grilled cheese sandwiches for our Food and Families program. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the things that you need to make this recipe. Some of the things you may not have, and that's okay. We'll talk a little bit about what you could do to improvise. So the first thing you're going to need for the soup, of course, is a pot. So I picked a fairly large pot. You're safer if you choose a little bit bigger of a pot, because later on we're going to be doing some blending. Then you're going to need, for the grilled cheese sandwiches, you can use a pizza pan. I have a cookie sheet here, whatever you have at home. That's safe to go in the oven. And I covered mine with parchment paper, but it's not necessary. I always tell people, I choose the easiest option for cleaning up, so we have parchment paper. A spatula for flipping your sandwiches. You're going to need a wooden spoon for your soup, just to stir it. A cutting board, so I have a nice big plastic cutting board here, and a knife for cutting your vegetables, the garlic and the onion as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, when you're cooking with your children, is to really think about safety, of course. So you might want to give them a butter knife, or if you have a nice plastic knife that you've seen us use before, if you've ever attended a program, for sure. But if you are using a knife like this, make sure that you are monitoring your children at all times. The next thing is a butter knife for spreading the butter on your bread. So you might want a couple of butter knives so you and your child or children can do it together. We're going to need a 1 cup measuring cup, 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, and that's for your pepper. We're going to need a peeler for your potatoes, because you will be peeling and then chopping the potatoes. A can opener for your crushed tomatoes or your canned tomatoes. And then the last thing I have here is, this is a cheese slicer. There might be another name for it, but that's what I call it, cheese slicer. I really like this, and we have it here. So I'm just gonna take you through how to use it today. It's a really fun tool. And the next thing is a hand blender. You know, I realize most folks, or a lot of folks, might not have this at home. If you have a regular blender, you can use that for your soup. Just be really careful pouring the soup in, because you don't want it to splatter up, because it will be hot. So a blender, but I bought this blender. You can get it at Superstore or Walmart, any of those places. You can get them usually about anywhere from $12 to $25. This one wasn't overly expensive. Just so that folks know that is an option if you ever have a choice to buy one. All right, so that is everything. Oh, and the last thing I have here that I didn't show you was a bowl, and that's just simply for our compost. So it's easy to just kind of throw your peels or ends of your veggies in that. So that is everything, and your soup, of course, will go on a stovetop, and we're all set to go. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is take you through the ingredients that you'll need to make the tomato soup and the grilled cheese sandwich. We're going to start with the tomato soup. So the things you'll need to make that are olive oil. So I have olive oil that you put in to fry up your onion and garlic. If you don't have olive oil, that's okay. You can use vegetable oil, or if you don't have oil, you can use butter. As long as you have something that you can fry those things up in. The next thing is vegetable broth. You can also buy vegetable broth in powder form that you mix with water or liquid, but for today's recipe, you'll be given this. Diced tomatoes, so a can of diced tomatoes. You're going to need lemon juice, and again, you don't have to put the lemon juice in. However, it does add a nice flavor, and it is given in your package as well today. And that'll be added at the end. Then we're going to need 1 onion. So I've already pre-chopped my onion, because sometimes my eyes water, and I thought it best to get it done beforehand. Then we're going to need 2 cloves of garlic. And I put a bulb of garlic next to it because this is a really good thing to teach and talk to your children about. So this would be a bulb of garlic, of course, and inside are all the little cloves of garlic, and we take it for granted that people might know that, but I did not know that the first time I ever used garlic. So it is a nice thing to kind of talk to your children about. Then you're going to need salt. So it's a teaspoon of salt. It's a quarter of a teaspoon of pepper. 1 bay leaf, and then I think it's a teaspoon of paprika. So that's your spices that you'll need. And we're going to use 2 potatoes today, and they're already pre-washed, and 2 stalks of celery. The next 3 ingredients are things that you're going to need for your grilled cheese. So it's going to be bread. Now you can choose to use whole wheat, you can have white, you can do multigrain. So it's bread of your choice, of course, that you prefer. And then you're going to need some butter to put on your bread. Last but not least that you'll need would be the cheese to make your grilled cheese sandwiches. And I know folks that have used different types of cheese. You can use a Havarti cheese, for example, but today we're just going to be using marble cheese. And in your packages, you'll be given cheddar cheese. Okay, so to start today's recipe, we're going to first put the oil in a bit, use the onion, the garlic, and we're going to chop up the celery. So this is a really fun thing to do with kids. Celery is pretty easy to chop up. And it's always neat to show them little tips and tricks. So again, I just kind of slice it down the middle, and then you can chop it up together. And again, you can teach them nice, safe ways to cut. You can teach them how to put their fingers underneath, how to make sure that they're moving way down. So that's the celery. We've chopped it up nice and small. And again, that'll take much longer with your children. But that's okay, right? That's what we want. So I'm going to turn on our burner here. I'm going to put it on about a medium. And we're going to put our oil in. So you're going to need 2 tablespoons of oil. Oh, there's my tablespoon. Move that out for now. So again, always counting with your kids. 1, 2. 2 tablespoons of oil. So we're going to let that heat up, and we're going to put in onion, garlic, so 2 cloves of garlic. Just get that out of there. And then your celery. We're going to let that simmer for about, it says 5 to 8 minutes. All right, so while we're waiting for that to sizzle, we're going to do our potato. So this is where we're going to peel our potato, and I'm just going to use this plate. So again, you show your child how to do that. Explain to them that this part is sharp so that they understand not to put their fingers near it. This can be a little tricky to do with very young children, so maybe you want to do this part. And you know what? I rarely use a peeler to peel potatoes. I peel it with a small knife. So you can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to pause here for 1 second and give this a stir. Oh, it smells really good. I'm going to turn the heat down. Give it another little stir. And then we're going to chop those potatoes up. So what I always do is I cut my potato in half. You put the flat part down, and then you can cut it. It makes it a lot easier. So you're just going to cube up your potato. The smaller it is, the faster it cooks. And then when you blend this up, it's a great way to get veggies if your children are selective food people, picky eaters we used to call them. Then this is a great way to get veggies into their diet. All right, so we're about ready to add the paprika. So I'm gonna add the paprika. Give that a little stir. And now we're going to add the potatoes. Veggie stock. So it's 3 cups of vegetable stock. And we can count with our children again. So 1, 2, 3. There we go. Your bay leaf. So the bay leaf we're going to remove at the end. And the salt. Give it a stir around. Bring it to a boil, and then we're going to turn the heat down again. Cover. I'm just going to give that a little cover there. So we're going to open up our can of diced tomatoes. And again, this is a great little thing. This is a fun thing to do. Your children usually enjoy turning it. Again, explain the safety. These things are sharp, and certainly you want to be careful whenever you're trying to get the top of the can up. So I'm just going to use a spoon here. We're going to remove it. And then I'm just going to put that there so that when we're ready, that'll also be ready there. So here's a clean cutting board. And if you don't have an extra cutting board, just wipe your cutting board down and you'll be all set to go. So you're going to want to open this. You can use a knife, a pair of scissors. Perhaps your cheese is already open because your children have already been eating it. Cheese doesn't stay very long in my household. All right, so your recipe does enough for 4 cheese sandwiches, and today we're just going to do 2, just for the sake of time. So this is the little cheese slicer. It is kind of fun, and it does guide your cheese. So it's about 4 slices per cheese, per sandwich. And again, a lot of people, I don't have one of these at my house, so I think that's why I find it so fun when I come here to do it. But you can just use a knife too. And this is definitely something that children learn, because if you've ever watched children put butter on bread, they tend to put holes in the bread, if you've ever seen that. So again, it's teaching them just nice and gentle how to spread the butter across the bread. The butter's on the bread. We're going to put that face down. So we're going to take our cheese, put it across your bread. Then we're going to put the butter on the other side. Well, so this has come to a boil now. So I can turn down the heat because we just want it to simmer. So we're gonna let that simmer for 15 minutes until the potatoes are tender. So our potatoes are pretty soft now, so we're gonna add in our can of diced tomatoes. And again, be very careful. This might be something that the adult wants to do because you don't want it splattering up. It's pretty hot. We're gonna give that a nice stir. And then we're going to add our pepper. It's 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So we're going to let that simmer for 10 minutes. So it says cover and simmer for 10 minutes. Okay, so we're ready to put our sandwiches in the oven. Again, we're going to put them in. I'll check on them in 4 and 5 minutes. Flip them over and we'll let them cook for another 5 minutes. Or bake for another 5 minutes. Okay, so we're about ready to add in our lemon juice, but before we do that, we're going to get the bay leaf out. We're just gonna pick this guy out and we're going to put him in there. The reason we take a bay leaf out, this is what I had read anyway, is that it's quite leathery, so it can kind of be a little crunchy in your soup. So we pull it out ahead of time. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of lemon juice. This is your final thing before you blend it out. So you've got the lemon juice added in there. Give it a stir around. And then I'm going to take it off of the burner. I'm going to plug in the blender. And we're going to blend it up. And that is your creamy tomato soup. So if you don't have a blender, a hand blender, you can use a regular blender. But you might want to let it cool off before you put it in your blender. And if you don't have that, then you can try mashing it. It'll just be a little bit less creamy. So this is what they look like after 5 minutes. Now for me, I like them a little less crunchy, so I may adjust my time again. So they are pretty much done. So rather than put them in for another 5 minutes, I'm gonna probably put them in for 1 or 2, and then they'll be all ready to go. So this is our finished product. There's your creamy tomato soup and your baked grilled cheese sandwich. It's a pretty simple meal, very economical. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it's fun to make with your children. So I really hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us again for another Food and Family soon. Take care. Bye.